Chris and Elizabeth. Welcome back to our Global Summit. We are so excited to introduce our next guest to you.
Well, Kelly Smith, welcome to our Global Summit. We're so thankful that you're with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for such a long time. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and we're glad you're here. Kelly is a mom of 3 boys. She's an author and a certified dating and relationship coach. No chicken. We were mentioning earlier that you might have a chicken running around there, but no chicken, right? No ferret. No.
No, nothing like that. No.
No pets to mention or anything like that added into the thing. But Kelly's in Austin, Texas. There, and we are told she has heat. If you need heat, you need heat, power, food, no snow, and nice weather.
Nice weather, and I actually have water. I lost my water for a little bit, and it's back now, so I'm very grateful for that.
Good. Awesome. So safe. All right. So your book is called Signs in the Rearview Mirror. Look at that beautiful book. How hard was that to write, and what's your book about?
So this book was excruciating to write. It was very painful to write. First, I had to live it, and then I had to write it. And I wrote this book specifically to help people understand what it looks like going through a toxic relationship, what manipulation can look like. A lot of friends and family don't understand that angle. I also wrote it for the people who are in something, who want to get out of something toxic and something abusive. I wanted to show people there is a way out, and also to help the future partners and spouses of someone who's been in a toxic, abusive relationship to really understand what they went through during that relationship.
I thank you, and I do. I'm midway through this, and what I love is your rawness and your honesty, because I know as a fellow sharer, sometimes it's really difficult, because one of the things I do is I worry. I think, oh, is this person, even if I use a pseudonym, are they going to read it and know it's about them? And it's me. So it has to, I worry about things like that. Did you ever worry about that? And I know you've protected people's identities and names and stuff, but what's that like for you, just as a writer and as a woman sharing a truth?
I think the most difficult thing for me was realizing after the book was written and released, what is this going to look like when I date again? And I wasn't really thinking along those lines while I was writing. And it wasn't until I actually set to date with intention that I thought of that. So it wasn't difficult to hide people in my life within the words that I wrote, but it was a little difficult when I started to date again and started to meet other people, because they ask you, what do you do? I'm a writer. Well, what do you write? And that's kind of a tough thing to answer right off the bat.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I relate to that. I relate to that too, just in that sharing personal and then sharing in, so thank you for sharing that with us. In your book, and certainly on your different blogs and website and everything, one of the things you do define for us, and I'll get you to talk about this right now, is the difference between, let's say, an unhealthy relationship and then toxic. So your use of the word toxic here is really specific. So give me the breakdown. What's the difference between, say, an unhealthy relationship and a toxic relationship?
An unhealthy relationship is one where communication is difficult, where you're maybe not on the same page, where it's hard to get along, you don't communicate very well. Now, a toxic relationship is something where you don't feel safe. You're not free to speak. You're not able to go where you want to go. You're not able to be who you are without being punished. So an unhealthy relationship, at some point you realize, you know what, this really isn't working anymore, and you go your separate ways. In something toxic, you are manipulated. You are you feel stuck. You are not free to be who you are.
Yeah. And that is tough stuff. That's for listeners out there who relate to this or understand this, or have, even as an outsider seeing it, that's something that reading your book and talking to you and wondering, when you see someone else in a situation and you can see clearly the issue or the problem, or you're like, oh, if only they knew. And what is it that, what is the moment, or how do you, when you're in something, why don't you see it as much or as clearly as, an outsider does? What do you think about that?
Well, when you get into something, you never go into a new relationship thinking, I can't trust this person. You usually come in with all your fresh trust, your honesty, you want to be who you are. Then after a while, you start to get sort of manipulated. The person will be nice to you in the beginning, and then they'll start insulting, and then they'll start hurting your feelings. But then their apologies come, and that makes you feel better. So you kind of get sort of tricked, manipulated into staying into something that's not healthy, because now you feel like you love this person, and then you start to feel like, maybe it's my fault that he's acting this way or she's acting this way. If I try harder, then they will love me again. If I do this differently, then it'll go back to the way it was in the beginning. So our friends and family on the outside can see exactly what's going on before we can.
Is there a way to prevent that in the first place? Is there? Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but there is a great way to prevent that. It's healing and being healthy. When we are in relationships and they end, the best thing we can do for ourselves is take that space between no longer and not yet, and figure out what went wrong in that last relationship. What was my accountability? Not his accountability or her accountability, but your own accountability. Take that time, heal, and then when it's time to date again, when you're ready for that, you will be able to see red flags soon. They won't be popping up in the middle of a relationship. You'll be able to spot them straight away.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's so many of our speakers on our platform at Best Ever You, we talk about that key thing, that healing yourself, and that getting to know yourself and honoring and valuing yourself. And as a coach, I know you deal with a lot of that too. And it seems like just go ahead and heal yourself. It sounds so simple, but it's such a tall order. And one thing we know about that for sure is it doesn't happen overnight. And so what advice do you have for someone, or what would you say if someone's like, well, I know I need to heal, but where do I start?
I think that's a great question to even ask yourself when you decide and you realize, maybe I need to heal. I keep attracting the same type of people. Maybe there's something going on with me. So I think finding a therapist that specializes in healing trauma that you've been through. A lot of times we bring into relationships the stuff that we had with us growing up. So we don't usually, show up to a relationship and all our baggage is put away somewhere. So it's finding out exactly what it is we need to heal from and pinpointing that. Talking to a therapist is a great way to do it. Finding a recovery program of sorts is also a great way to do that. So you can really figure out who you are, where your damage happened, and then you can begin to heal that.
Yeah. I love that. And what I love too there, we're all coaches in our own rights with different buckets of expertise, but I love that your open-mindedness and you're like, find the right help. Is that a therapist? Is that this outreach or that outreach? And there's no one size fits all. And despite the fact that, again, all of us are coaches and you're like, contact me at Be Brave Coaching. I can help you and I can help you with these things. But some things take a different level or a different angle of help or a different professional to help you with that. And I think that's really worth recognizing. And for our friends and fans and people listening, I think, I'm sorry, I'm stealing a little here, but as I just really want to say there is help available. And I think in today's climate, there are so many ways to get help and to realize you are not alone. Yeah.
I like that.
That also wants me to circle in. Sorry. Oh, Elizabeth, am I stealing all the questions?
You're good. There's plenty. There are plenty of questions. We're going to have Kelly on here for a while.
I know. So in looking at that too, I want to take a little sidebar and talk about your podcast. You have a couple, but I want to talk about the dating one in particular. So it's called Let's Get Wicked Deep. Yes. And so tell us how that started and what your inspiration for that podcast around dating in particular.
So I'm so sorry to cut you off, but going through this whole process of healing, it was not easy. It was such a massive decision to make. So when I started to feel more like myself, I realized at one point, other people are going through this as well. Because there was a time where I literally thought I was the only one that had been in a toxic, abusive relationship. And I remember thinking, like, why did this happen to me? But then after coming out of that and getting into the group healing that I did and with my therapy, I realized there are so many more people dealing with the same thing. So if I was able to take what I had learned and what I knew and what I experienced and help other people, then I was going to do that regardless of how I was going to do that. So it started with blogging a little bit here and there, and then my book. And then from my book, I did start my podcast because I wanted people who were in toxic relationships to not only know that they don't have to stay, but also that there is a healthy, happy life waiting for them on the other side. And I wanted people to know that it was possible, that you could suffer through something, heal, and then live healthy again.
What was your point of healing? Like, what was your moment where you were like, okay, I need to get out of this and heal?
Ooh, that's a question.
You mind share? And you don't have to share it if you don't want to. It's okay, because you decide. You can pass. You can go pass.
So it's interesting because, and I haven't thought about this moment in quite some time, mind you. So it was the day that my toxic relationship kind of exploded. And after he had moved out, my house was completely trashed. Everything was thrown everywhere. I was a wreck on the floor. And that's all I'll say about that. But in that moment, while I was laying on the bedroom floor in my house that was now just everywhere, I said to myself, I need to heal. Something is going on. I need to make some changes. And I had a friend who had talked to me about a recovery program. She planted seeds. And in that moment, laying on that floor alone, terrified, I was like, I need to make a phone call and get into a program or get some form of help. So for me, I was facing the barrel of 2 failed relationships. It really isn't that bad, but they were both toxic. And I had to figure out what my accountability was, because in those moments when I was so alone, I had no idea what my accountability was, but for whatever reason, I knew I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Did in that moment, did you use, like, when you're in that moment, did you say, I need to figure out what my accountability is here? I don't imagine you said it then, or did you?
To a degree, not in those exact words.
It would be neat it would be comforting maybe to other people experiencing a situation, and they might be in it right now or whatever, to hear what you said to yourself.
So in all honesty, what I said to myself was, I don't want to have another failed relationship, so I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So for me, I felt like 2 relationships that didn't work out, something had to be wrong with me. And not wrong with me in a sense where I was a bad person, but why was this happening? Like, why was this a relationship that ended in this way? Not in just like, hey, this isn't going to work out, but in a massive explosion. So at that point, I knew I needed something. I wasn't exactly sure what, but I knew I knew I needed something.
Yeah. And that is honestly a huge step. That's a huge step.
Thank you.
Recognizing that. I mean, I know you say there was physical things, your house was chaos, and there was, like, so that, and you had a friend you mentioned just briefly saying planting seeds, and you talked about getting help. And so if I'm someone in a toxic relationship or something, who can I trust and who can I find to help me make the steps or take the steps to leave a relationship that isn't serving me?
I think it was Mr. Rogers who said, always look for the helper. In any situation, always look for a helper. Everyone has that one friend, right? That one friend who isn't going to bash you, who isn't going to insult you, who is going to be there for you time and time again. That's the friend that you go to. You trust one, usually it's one person, family member or a friend, and you can say to them, I need to get out of this. But before you can say that to your friend, you have to say it to yourself first, and you have to believe it. There were so many times where I said to myself, I need to get out of this, but I didn't do anything about it. But when I made that decision that this has to end, I reached out when I was ready to reach out. And that's the most important decision that you're going to make in something like this. You have to be ready.
What about the people who don't believe you?
Another one I didn't expect. Very good question. So those are not the people you go to.
Yeah.
Those are not the people that you talk to. No, you go to the ones that have been there for you. There are going to be people, when you're in a toxic relationship like this and you yourself don't realize it's toxic, you're going to find yourself at one point or another with people that look at you and say, just leave. We're sick of hearing this. What are you doing? And which is another reason why I wrote my book, was because I wanted to give the outside people an inside look to what this was. So when it's time to go, you go toward the one that has always been, in a way, your light, and not the ones that didn't really believe you. They will help you, but they will most likely belittle you as they're helping you. And those are not people.
Do we need to interject any kind of safety measures in this discussion? Do you want to go through that? Because sometimes it could be tough to leave.
Sometimes it can be very tough to leave. Sometimes it's, and this is where it gets more difficult, is because personally, I have been asked, why didn't you leave? Because I was afraid to leave.
Yeah.
I was afraid to come home. I was afraid to speak my opinion. I was afraid to wear a t-shirt. So it's one of those things where, in a way, starting to make that decision that you want to leave and plant seeds to the toxic person and try to make it their decision that they need to leave, which you can't do overnight. But if it's a horribly abusive situation and you live with somebody and you have kids with somebody, that's going to take a very big step of packing up and going and trying your best to go to a place where you can be safe. So it's a very scary situation. So for anyone who is in something like that, there is help. Making a solid plan, trusting people around you, and going, and not wavering.
I'm going to lay up that with one more question. Is there a difference between toxicity and domestic abuse?
It's in a way, I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. So in my own experience, at first it wasn't physically abusive. It wasn't for a little bit, and then it was. So toxic abusive is a relationship that I endured. So I think they do kind of go hand in hand. Now, that doesn't mean that every toxic relationship gets physically abusive. That does not mean that. Not every relationship is like that, but there are some, definitely.
So we'll put up in the replay of the video maybe the domestic abuse hotline number, so people know what that is and have that, just so we have that for people, because we don't know who's watching or who's listening.
Yeah, and we appreciate, thank you so much. I know sharing personal stories is always just a different level than sharing professional stories. So thank you, Kelly, for your openness and willingness to do that. I know you talk freely in your book and on your podcast, and that's the kind of person you are. And that's why I love and adore you so much too. I'm a fellow sharer and storyteller, but my stories are different. I want to ask you more about the relationship too. Is I know from reading your book and talking to you, is obviously in the beginning there is this like euphoria because it's like, oh, I love this guy, he's amazing, and then why is it that you hold on to that as the reality even down the line, and you're like, well, no, we're in love, I can't give up on him, that's not who he is, this is who he is. And speak about that, please, because I think that the way you talk about it.
So I think what's the most interesting part of that is a healthy person doesn't wake up and then get into something toxic. So the difference between an unhealthy relationship and a toxic relationship is the healthiness of the person. So if I'm dating someone today and he starts doing some of the stuff that the toxic person was doing, I would say, you know what, this really isn't for me, and I would leave. But when you're not healthy, when you haven't been loved by your parents or previous relationships, what you are is you're a sponge. And then when someone comes along and tells you that you look beautiful and that you're so smart and you're so amazing, and they take you out on these amazing dates and they give you jewelry and they surprise you and they send you these amazing text messages and they call you all the time and they just want to be with you all the time, they think you're so amazing, you soak that up. And you're like, this is something I've never felt ever before in my life, and I love it. I will do anything to not lose it. So as you walk through this relationship and the insults happen, then the apology will happen, and then things go back to normal. Then at some point, the insults are more and the apologies are less. And you do start to think, what did I do wrong to cause him to do this? Because he was so amazing in the beginning, and now he's treating me like this. I need to love him harder because I saw who he was and he was great. And now he's not like that. What did I do wrong? When in reality, nothing. That was never him.
Yeah.
Isn't it an interesting person who can be that way? Like it's like two people or three or four even. Who knows, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's definitely multiple personalities, it seems to me. But they also are very good at what they do because they've had their entire lives to craft this.
Yeah.
Do you think there is, you know, if I look at people in my life or people who even just come to me for coaching or different things, and they'll ask me this, they'll say, why does this happen over and over again? Why am I always drawing in this type of person, man, woman, date? Like, why am I always in this cycle? Do you get that question in your dating coaching?
I do. I get it in my coaching. I see it online. I hear it from tables behind me if I'm out somewhere. Yeah, I do. I get that a lot. And it's interesting.
Sorry, I'm just Kelly. Hi, sorry, I hope your appetizer is good, but can I just talk to you for a minute?
Sometimes I'd love to do that, but when we are attracting the same person over and over again, it's because we need to heal parts of ourselves. So I see this a lot and I hear this a lot. And it drives me a little nuts is when I hear someone say all men are the same. They're not, though. They're not. So it's maybe your picker is broken. So a lot of times we have things broken within ourselves and we don't realize it. And sometimes it doesn't come out until we make a statement, a blanket statement like all men are the same. No, they're literally not. So and then it takes someone to say, well, what do you mean by that? And kind of ask a few questions. And then people will start to realize, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm attracting these people. And healing is the greatest thing to ever happen. It's difficult, but it's the most amazing thing.
Yeah. How safe did you feel dating again after going through that? And maybe I could see people, healed or not healed, I could see people not really trusting that process.
Man,
you just don't know who's, getting through the first and second layer and third layer to discover who somebody really is. Who wants to discover that they're toxic? It's like,
Yeah, and I have clients that I work with, and I love working with people who are dating again, either after a toxic relationship or after a long-term relationship ends, because I can teach them so much and I can guide them through the steps of what everything looks like. On my end, I was fortunate to have my therapist who was great. He helped me through a lot of stuff, but the biggest thing before you start dating, after any kind of relationship ends, of course, is that space between no longer and not yet. Getting used to who you are, figuring out who you are. We are never the same person coming out of a relationship as we were going in. So who are you now? Now that you've endured either this or a long-term relationship ended, who are you today? Because if we don't know who we are, how are we going to show other people how to treat us or introduce ourselves to somebody new if we don't even know who we are? So I think the biggest thing is when we do start dating is to take it slow. Take it slow. Watch people in their natural environment. See who they are naturally. A lot of times we want to push people in a direction we want them to be in. But if we do that, are we really getting that genuine person? Most likely we're not. So let them be who they are, be who you are, and take it slow at first.
I have one more. What about well-intentioned people, both well-intentioned people, and it just is the wrong mix?
And that's where, where two healthy people who realize they don't mix will be able to talk about that. They'll be able to say, you know what? I want to have kids. Well, I don't want to have kids. This might not be the best thing for me. So you're able to have those conversations. And the biggest thing is honesty. If you're sitting across the table from someone on a first date and they are saying things that you are not aligned with, it's no matter how good they look, it doesn't matter. If you are not aligned with what this person believes in, or you can see yourself meshing, it's best to just say so straight away rather than drag it out 6 or 7 months because you want to make something work.
Yeah. I think communication is key on so many things. And in this relationships, and especially romantic relationships scenarios, communication is just really, really key. But communication does come with that healing. And I know we're talking about that healing. in the interim where you realize that you need help and you're maybe getting it or finding that new rediscovery of yourself, and you're not there yet, you're not that great communicator, or you don't have the skills, or you're doubting yourself, is there anything you would suggest, like if I'm a friend or a family member of somebody that I see is in a unhealthy or a toxic relationship, like what can I do to support? And I know you touched a little, you said some people didn't believe me and some people this or that, but if I'm someone that's like, I see Kelly struggling, or whoever, I'm just choosing you, what can I do? What advice would you give to the family and friend circle? Because it doesn't help to come in like a bull in a china shop and be like, here are all the things you're doing wrong or whatever. So I want to be the helper. What advice do you have for me?
I think from experiencing it myself, the best thing to do is ask the people, how do they feel? If you have someone in your life and they're calling you and they're saying, well, he did it again.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? Kind of have them say it out loud. Say out loud how they feel. Instead of, well, you should just break up with them. You shouldn't let them do this. Why do you allow this to happen to yourself? When you started questioning in that sort of way, that pushes the couple, if you will, back together. But if you say to them, well, how does that make you feel? Then they're going to say it. And once you say it out loud and you hear it yourself, the seeds start to plant. You start to understand a little bit more of what's going on. Being there for somebody is probably the best thing. But at the same time, you can be there for someone until you're blue in the face. But if it's starting to affect you mentally, it's okay to not take those calls. It's okay to not respond to a text message. Just because you love that person, that family or friend, does not mean you have to be readily available to them 24/7. We have to always remember that they are in the situation you are supporting. So if you don't have that wherewithal to support them constantly, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because you don't want yourself to be pulled into a seemingly never ending, or seemingly, if it's not healthy or good for you. And that's something we are always all concerned about, is looking after our own well-being. And so if you are seeing and aware of this difficulty, and incredibly difficult, because it's not something like having a bad job where you can leave, earlier you said, I didn't want to go home. You had all kinds of worries and anxieties and things that were just really impossible, seemingly impossible at that time. So, that said, is there now when you're looking at your next dating and your new stuff, was there a time when it was like blurred lines where you were like, is this a red flag or am I just overthinking it? Like,
Yeah, there was definitely. So I made, personally, for everyone else, I made all the mistakes. Every mistake that you can make, I made them. So, and then I wrote about the mistakes I made. So yes, there were definitely times where dating again was really tough. When I was dating, I call it unhealthy dating. I was again attracting the same people. And I was like, why is this happening? So while walking through that, I realized, okay, I need to stop dating while I'm healing. And I did. And then I dated healthy. Now, when you are dating with intention and you're dating to find someone, it's fun, scary, but fun. But yes, there are definitely a lot of times where it's like, is this okay? Is that okay? Someone you're with might say something that triggers you from your previous relationship, and you're like, oh no, it's happening again. And it's not happening again. It can be very, very difficult, which is why it's great to have someone that you can talk to. Again, one person, because too many cooks in the kitchen, and if you talk to too many people about this, you get a lot of different advice. Sometimes you take it, which could be a mistake, and other times you don't, which could also be a mistake. But it's definitely difficult sometimes to figure out, like, am I overthinking or is this normal? Again, it's best to take your time, pull yourself out of it for a few minutes and think to yourself, okay, let's really think about this. Let's listen to my gut here on this. And usually it's okay to do. But yeah, there are definitely times where it's a little confusing.
What are the dangers of dating? I'm thinking of like, being a mom of 4 boys and just teenagers and dating and just all the teenage stuff even. I can't remember, Chris, where we were on that somebody's like, I'm going to roll out the checklist to date my daughter. or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I can't remember what that was. Do you roll out a checklist to date Kelly, or
I think as
what are
so
the
as
dangers
as
of
we
dating, and what's
well
the checklist?
as we get older, it's dating with intention is very different. When you have kids, when you've been in a toxic relationship, when you've been divorced. So it's, you look for different things now. When we're younger, we like to look for someone who's appealing to the eyes. We want to find someone who looks great. I often compare that to like a Lamborghini in your driveway with no engine. So it's like everyone can come by and take pictures. It looks great, but it doesn't go anywhere because it looks good. But what, and I'm not saying that people, don't look good as they're older, not what I'm saying. But now we start looking for different things. Where at one point when I first started dating, my list was, a certain height, a this, a that, da, da, da. And then at some point it turned into somebody who's, just breathing. Also a joke. But we then look for somebody who can be honest, somebody who is trustworthy, somebody who will show up for us, somebody who's consistent, who can understand, who can be patient. So we will go from like a checklist of like what someone looks like and like what kind of a job they have to, can I suffer well with this person?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the person I want with me at 2 a.m. when I get the worst phone call of my life? So a lot of times when we're younger and we're dating, we don't think about those things. But now that we're older and we've been through some stuff, we want someone who can show up for us when we're at our absolute worst, regardless of how they look. So it's interesting. And then when you do have kids, you do have to find someone who, my kids are older. My youngest is 19, my oldest is 26. And for me, I want to have a person who is going to be an amazing role model, somebody who's not necessarily going to be a dad figure, but a good man. And luckily I've been able to find that. And it's not easy to find, but it's definitely possible if you can.
I love your answer there. And you've said this phrase a few times. I want to expand on it. You've said dating with intention. And I think that's something that would relate to even the younger crowd, right? Dating with intention, if you can start to wrap your brain around that. But tell us what you mean when you say dating with intention. Expand on that a little bit, because I really like that.
So when we're dating with intention, we're dating to find someone to continue with, somebody who we can see being in a relationship with, who we can end up possibly getting married to someday, long term. When we first start dating, a lot of times we date for fun. Nothing wrong with dating for fun. Sometimes we date because we want to get used to it. We want to get to know other people. We want to just meet new people and see how it goes. And that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. When I very first started dating, I was dating without intention. I was dating just to get used to it, just to get out there again, see how I feel, see what I dress up in. But then after a while, I was like, I think it might be time to start dating with intention, meaning I'm ready to find somebody who I can possibly build a life with.
Yeah. Okay, fun question. Have you ever had to end a date? You're on a date, it's terrible. You're like, get me out of here. What's the shortest date you've ever had that you were like, I need to that? Or is that something that you haven't experienced?
Well, that's another question I did not expect. But I do have a date that lasted about 12 minutes.
Really?
About
11 minutes too long.
12 wait. It was during my unhealthy dating where I was in this idea of I'm going to meet someone, it's going to be this amazing love story, and we're going to be able to talk about it for years to come. No. That did not happen. So it was definitely a catfish sort of thing, where they present themselves one way and they look completely different. And at the end of in the 11th minute, I guess you could say, he told me that he was getting married. I would be a part of the group. And I was like, what? No. And I left. I had never done that before. I had never gotten up and left. So it was definitely interesting. And dating as an adult will sometimes put you in those situations where you're like, I have to be brave and tell this person I am not interested. And that is not easy.
And safe too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why to me, dating has an element of danger. I don't know why. It just does not sound fun to me at all. But I've been married for 22 plus years. So the whole thing, I'm like, oh, no, I'm good.
But I think that it does take, I love that your coaching is called Be Brave, because it does take, so just on a little personal sliver for me, I did not meet Ben, who I was married and with Ben for 9 years. I did not meet him until I was 35. And I started dating when I was 19 or 20, whatever. And so 15 years of dating, and I did online dating, and I did some speed dating at events and different things. And I had uncomfortable coffees and things. And I learned so much about how I want to go forward. And by the time I finally met Ben, and I also started dating with intention, I took a look at my list of 6'2", blue eyes, all the things, and was like, okay, what are my values? And that was the shift for me. But looking back, I know friends of mine have said, they're like, you should write a dating book, because I do think I just, 82 frogs, I think it would be called, because I feel like it was 82 people that I went on dates with before I met Ben. I don't know if that's the exact number, but it is something that does put you out of your comfort zone, because you think, and I love people and I love meeting people, but that dating bracket is so different. Like if I was like, okay, Kelly, I'm going to meet you for coffee and we're going to have a chit chat about, I don't know, throwing a party, or have a chit chat about our careers, and whether it was you, Kelly, or if I was to just meet a man and we were going to have a career talk or something. That's so different than being like, we are going on a date, we're meeting for a coffee, we're going to discuss our favorite colors and our hobbies with the hopeful intention of some romantic spark. So it is a thing that takes bravery. So
Yeah. Do you want to go back to the questions at the end, like the incredible yes and all that? Or did Kelly, is there anything that we haven't asked you that you would like to chat about?
The one thing I want to say about dating safe is it is very scary to do, especially for women. So I think a great thing, and I made this also a classic mistake, where I had gone on a date and did not tell anyone where I was going. And then when I left the date, because I was brave and said, you know what, this is not for me, I called my friend and he was like, what is wrong with you? So my advice to something like that is to always tell someone where you're going. Drop a pin when you get there. Let people know where you're going. Don't meet people at night for night dates until you get to know them really well. There's nothing wrong with breakfast dates. Bring those back, right? It's lunch dates, breakfast dates, coffee, whatever. Do those sorts of things. And now with the virus hanging out, a lot of these dating apps have put on video features. So now you can do 10 dates in one day and wear the same outfit, and you don't even need pants. So it's very, very, very easy. It's much, it's much more fun. I've never done it, but it looks like a really cool thing. With what I do have contact with a few of the big dating sites, and so I do know a lot of stuff that's going on with it. And but safe dating is definitely a concern.
Stranger danger. I mean, that's going through my head is stranger danger, stranger danger.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that people know on this topic that, especially as we're talking about toxic people who are appearing all nice and sweet in the beginning, just be careful out there. Be safe. And I totally agree with you. That's what I was, if you hadn't said it, I was going to just chime in and say, please let people know where you are, even if you randomly show up at the restaurant,
Yep.
or call you 5 minutes in, anything, just put a safety measure in place before you go actually meeting a stranger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yes, very true.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kelly Smith. We are going to circle back to our summit. Elizabeth had just said that. So our 2 questions that we're asking all of our speakers, one of our themes is the incredible yes here. So the incredible yes is a moment that you said yes to something or someone, and it changed your life. And so we would love to hear, and you may have multiple, but we would just love to hear one of your incredible yes stories. If you will please share that with us.
So I do have 2, and I've been thinking about this. And the first incredible yes that I have is saying yes to becoming a mom. I had my oldest when I was 17, and I had no idea what life was going to look like. So for me, people would say your life is over, but my life was just beginning. So that was the most important one that I've said yes to. And the second one is saying yes to love again. It was scary. It was a huge risk, but it was it was the best thing to ever happen to me. So, and I'm very grateful that I took that risk again.
Lovely.
Oh, I love both of those answers so much because I do. I love, and I know my beautiful Ben, who he told me, he's like, you are young, go find love again. The time is not now, but I love that you're like, I believed in love and I want love again, and that's beautiful. And the mom part too. I love that too. And so our other question is on our topics of the day. So our topic today is community and connection. And so our question for you there is, what advice or what tip would you have for people to keep connected or to feel that sense of community?
I think it would be to tune in wherever you can to find like-minded people, whether that's a group sort of like this or a podcast or, different things like that. Find people that you can relate to, that accept you, that are willing to understand you. So you do feel like a whole human. 'Cause a lot of times we walk around this earth and we sometimes just feel lost because the people around us love us, but they don't always understand us. And it's up to us to find those groups of people that we can be ourselves with, as well as the people around us that don't always understand us. So tune in would be my advice.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Kelly, you did it. You made it through the yeah, Kelly. Let's give her some glitter, Chris.
Yes, we always throw our celebratory glitter.
Hooray!
Yeah,
Exciting.
we did it. All right. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being here on the Global Summit with us. Yes, give us a big heart and just lots of love to you. And we're so proud you did it. Yay.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. I
And
appreciate
glitter
it.
on the way out. You got to throw glitter with it.
Glitter. My glitter throw.